What's up, Dragon Brood? So, today we have a very interesting thing. For those of you who don't know, they did a major update on Arena, which I think was like a 1.2 gig update or something. It took forever, but there was problems all day long. And because the games were being inconsistent, I was like, I don't really want to necessarily play a bunch of games that are going to end up dropping from the servers and whatever, and just being problematic. And it's probably going to make for bad footage because I have to chop up games. So, what I decided to do today was look at how we could update decks going into next year, like we've been doing for Standard 2022, but with free decks that they gave us in Arena. Now, I'm told these decks are the same decks I guess you get recently for going through the tutorial. However, a bunch of us have gone through the tutorial forever ago, and we did the update, and then there's these free decks sitting in our account. It's like, well, what do we do with them? Because they're not good as they are. So I decided we're going to do some budget upgrades. So we're going to start with the Gruul deck. And we did 4 of them on stream last night. We'll be putting them up on the YouTube channel here over the next day or two as I can get them done, because I'm doing this one at like midnight after I just got done with the stream. But we're going to take a look at that deck. We're going to talk about what's bad about what's there and what we can do to increase it and make it better with the minimal number of rares and mythics to make it playable. Alright, so like with all of these free decks that they give us, the downside is that they're mostly inconsistent, and then they're full of cards that just aren't necessarily what you would even call playable. Now, I will say, whenever we get to the final list, they may not be like top tier playable, but they're going to at least be somewhat competitive, and you're going to be able to have fun with them on the open play queue as well. And that's kind of the biggest thing, is can you even get these to where you can play with them, do your dailies, maybe do some ranking with them from time to time. But where they're at now when they start just aren't viable at all. So we're going to take a look at what this one has in store for us. So Akum Hellhound, this is mostly fine. And this deck is actually called Savage Lands. The idea, based on what they put here, is that it sounds like they want us to be a landfall deck. But what we notice about a lot of these decks is they sort of give you hints at a theme, but not even enough copies of the cards that do the thing, even when they're commons and uncommons, which is kind of weird. Same thing here with Akum Hellhound. We only have 3 copies, which is kind of silly. The Hobgoblin Captain, this is one that we could give or take. It could stay, it could go, you know, can go either way with that. Royal Eruption, fine card, nothing wrong with this. Probably could even play a 4th. Bull Strength, I'm kind of 50-50 on. This is the type of card that, like, it does pump your creatures, which is nice. You can use it on combat or defense. You can prevent burn, or actually save your creature from burn damage, which is nice. But also a cool combat trick that you get to just untap something. And that's pretty cool whenever you have sizable bodies. Now, the benefit of these decks is you do get cards like Werewolf Pack Leader. And I want to also remind everybody that you don't get an additional copy. From what I understand, it's more just if you don't own one, you end up with one, if that makes sense. If you have one, you don't end up with 2. It's kind of just adding at least 1 to your account if you have these decks now. So, Werewolf Pack Leader, good card. It's a type of card you're going to use probably all throughout Standard if you end up playing green at all. This is a really good card. Definitely want to be able to play more copies of this. Brushfire Elemental also gets the benefit of landfall, so it's weird that they didn't just give us 4 of this one, but sure, here it is. Targnar, this one's kind of a weird one because it doesn't necessarily benefit from landfall, but it does pump your team, which is very nice. It's cheap to cast. It can double its power and toughness. So, sure, it's in. Hulking Bugbear. This is exactly the type of card that we're looking to cut first. Like, it's a 3/3 for 3, which is okay. It does have haste, which is fine. But it doesn't have evasion. It's smaller than most of the other stuff you're going to want to play. It's just meh. You know, it's fine, but meh. Choose your weapon. Also cute, and I thought about should we be saving this one or not. And I'm going over this, by the way, to kind of explain why we don't want certain cards in the list. But doubling a creature's power is nice if you're very aggressive and you actually get what you want out of there. But the problem is when you're being defensive, it's kind of a lot less interesting, and it's 3 mana. So you end up having to leave 3 mana up on defense to be able to maybe kill something. Dealing 5 damage to a flyer, I will say, is neat. There's a lot of dragons, which just would do pretty well against them. But your ground creatures can also be big enough that maybe you just fight the dragons that way. So I don't know if I necessarily want this to be the card that we're looking to use. Especially when we have Kazandu Mammoth that we have a copy of. And when we're playing any type of landfall, you might as well just play more of these because you can play them as land in those tight situations where it's necessary. Scale the Heights, not a big fan of this card. It's actually the wrong card to have in here. There's like Roiling Eruption, or not Roiling Eruption. There's a Roiling one that lets you go and get land. That's one. There's a bunch of other things. You'd rather just have something that searches for land and puts it into play guaranteed. This is cool because it puts a counter on a thing, and you gain 2 life, and you can play an extra land, but you don't have lands in hand. It's not going to be as good, especially considering you don't have a full set of Kazandu Mammoths, which could potentially be extra land. Also comes with 1 Toski, Bearer of Secrets. Great card to put it in many decks. Toski's fantastic. Hard to kill, gets extra cards, like lots of bonus things going for it. Vastwood Surge is actually fine as one of the cards that can go get land, because you can go search for 2. If you pay the kicker later in the game, then you go ahead and put 2 counters on all your stuff. So nothing wrong with this card. I think it's fine for this type of deck. Froghemoth, reasonable. I don't know how many I'd really want to play, but it's a reasonable card. It's haste. It's 4/4. It can grow. Don't have a problem with it. Owlbear, very bad. I mean, look at comparatively what you get between these 2 cards, right? Owlbear, it's a 4/4 trample. When it enters the battlefield, cool, you get a card. But Froghemoth lets you get the same 4/4 with haste, and you could clear your opponent's graveyard out so they can't recur things with like Blood on the Snow and things like that. But you also get the chance to probably grow this into a 6/6, 8/8, whatever, right? So much more for that 5-man. Don't get me wrong, it's nothing to turn your nose up at getting a card, but these 2 are not in the same league, so we'd be cutting this Owlbear. It does also give you an Inferno of the Star Mounts, which is a great card, and we get a Phylath. Also reasonable if you're playing any type of landfall. So don't really hate the cards it gave us overall. There's only a couple that we automatically wanted to cut. So this will make at least the deck build we end up with pretty interesting. So let's take a look at where we are at now. All right, so here we are at the update, and this is, I want to kind of justify what we're doing here, because again, the goal is to make it playable, but also keep it within a reasonable budget. So what I mean by that is I generally, most of the time for my own personal, I say ignore lands because you need to craft the lands anyway. But even keeping it with just the lands that they came with, it's how close can we get this with maybe no more than 6 to 9 rares or mythics that people can play, because they may already own some of them. They may only have to craft a couple, and this puts stuff within the safe zone of being a budget deck. So doing that, we're playing 4 Akum Hellhounds, because if we're going to do landfall, it makes sense to go ahead and go for it. Went ahead and decided to keep the Hobgoblin Captain, mostly because it's a good play on 2, and if we're able to like grow a Hellhound, attack with a Brushfire Elemental, like it's going to have a lot of situations where we're going to be able to have this be first striking. And in duplicate, they help each other, so they kind of solve the problem. Went ahead and played a 4th Royal Eruption. 3 damage is nice. It's not instant speed, but it does let us target anything, including the opponent. And late game, we could actually use this as a finisher for 5 damage or to just take out something bigger. So I don't mind it being in that sorcery speed package for what it gives us. Bull Strength. Because of the combat tricks, we opted to go ahead and leave this. I almost cut it for possibly more removal. Maybe if we wanted to play like bigger dragons. If we weren't on a budget, I would probably not play this, and I would just as well play like a couple of Goldspan dragons in all reality. But because we're a budget, something had to stay. This got to keep it just because it's an untap effect and gives you a +2/+2. And Trample, by the way. I want to Trample is not a waste because it does let you get that attack where you get to pump stuff or whatever and give Trample to something that might otherwise get chump blocked by like a 1/1, and you might be able to get through for 4 or 5 damage. So lots of reasons that it ended up staying in this list. Now, I mentioned before, we went ahead and just put the pack leaders. So that puts us at 3 rares. So far, we've added everything else we've upgraded so far is commons and uncommons. So 3 pack leaders. Brushfire Elemental, we added another one of these and just went to a full package. We kept the 2 Targnars. No need to really go any more than that. I think what we had is fine here. Kazandu Mammoth, we did up this to 4 as well. So that's 6 rares that we put in here. Went with Roiling Regrowth as our choice of cards. This lets us get 2 basic lands into play, so we get double triggers when we go get them, which is big if you're talking about a Hellhound for 4, or a Brushfire Elemental for 5, or a Kazandu Mammoth for 7. I mean, that's a pretty big pickup there. To just have this as a combat trick during the attack step. So going with Roiling Regrowth. Still kept the one Toski because I think there's value there. We did cut one of the Vastwood Surge. Though we like it to be able to search out 2 land, we don't think we're going to be playing Kicker all that much on it, so I'm okay cutting that down. And then on the top end, we kept the 1 Froghemoth, the 1 Inferno of the Star Mounts, and 1 Phylath. So overall, really happy with this whole package. Being able to have the extra land to search out some land lets us get for a quality top end, so we can kind of fits around here a little bit. Then if our board does get swept, we do have sizable creatures with like Kazandu Mammoths, Froghemoth, Inferno Titan to follow with. And these all are pretty substantial bodies as well. We like that a lot. Lands, we didn't do anything special with the lands. We just went to 7 mountains, 7 forests, kept the 1 Crag Crown pathway it came with, 4 Highland Forests, and 4 Evolving Wilds. Evolving Wilds obviously help out with the landfall, so there's no way we were going to cut those. I would say if you want to take this a step further, even than this list, I would consider go ahead and playing more Crag Crown pathways. I'd rather it be 4 of those than 1 Highland Forest. Honestly, I'd probably make that cut. And then maybe even, like I said, those Bull Strengths. And if we really wanted to, cut like a Froghemoth and maybe even the Phylath to play 4 Goldspan Dragons if you have them. They're just really, really good. It's hard not to play them. They fly over the top. They have haste. They get you more mana. There's just so much going on with them. But overall, yeah, like I said, they think this list is where we want to be. I will have this downloadable for you to be able to play. We did play a game with this on stream, and it did work out how we expected. So, yeah, it's actually playable, quality. And again, we upgraded this by only adding 6 rares. I mean, I think that, yeah, it's just the 3 Werewolf Pack Leader, the 3 Kazandu Mammoth, and that's it. We didn't really have to add anything else. So, upgrades, again, maybe some Goldspan Dragons, maybe Crag Crown Pathways, and that's it. And this should still be playable as is. So, very simple upgrades to the free Savage Lands decks. As always, if you like this stuff or there's other decks you want me to do this for, let me know down in the description below. Don't forget, you can follow me over on Discord if you want to come hang out in the channel, get deck help with something that's not a free deck. Also, I stream on Facebook Gaming during the daytime, and you can find me over on Twitch a couple times a week in the evening. And finally, if you haven't, don't forget, please like, follow, subscribe, support, all that good stuff. But that's all I have for you for now. We'll see you next time.